Welcome to Commander Central, Episode 5, the special back-to-school edition. Our backpacks are packed, our Trapper Keepers are stocked, and our number 2 pencils are sharpened. Mr. Belloren has shown up, confused and shirtless as our new algebra teacher. That doesn't make a bit of sense, but it doesn't make any sense in Ixalan either, so we're just going to roll with it. I am Dana.
I'm Max.
And I'm Chris.
We're going to talk about our experiences with the precons, and we'll talk about Jace being shirtless, and we'll talk about some games we played, and Jace not wearing a shirt, and maybe some discussion of the legendary Planeswalker rule change, and then probably Jace not wearing a shirt. Before that, listener feedback, Jace not wearing a shirt, and what other nonsense may pop up in our brains. So how is everyone doing on this back-to-school day?
Well, can't complain. Kid went back to school.
So how is that? So you're a stay-at-home dad. So now
Yes, I am.
Now you have a quiet house.
Yeah, I have, I think our puppy's 5 months old now, and she sat and stared out the window all day, wondering where
seriously?
he was.
Aw.
Because usually he plays with
sad.
her all day.
That's too bad. So this is like the first time because he's full-time now, right? This isn't like half-day kindergarten.
No, the kindergarten's full-time now. It's not half days
What
anymore.
the heck?
No naps, no nothing.
I guess my son was not in kindergarten that long ago, and it was full-time, so I should have remembered that. But
I was a child of half-day kindergarten.
I was too.
I remember the naps on the mats.
Yes.
And all
We
that
didn't
fun
do
stuff.
naps.
We had a little nap time as well. I like that. And I think the full-time the full-time kindergartners still do a nap time.
I'm not sure.
Well, my son he's in 4th grade, and he was a zombie by the end of the day yesterday. He was just knocked out, in bed by 7 and just cranky the entire time. I think it was a good day, but I think just after the summer off, it's like coming back from vacation when you have a job. You just I don't want to do this all day.
That's every day.
Right, exactly. Yeah, right. pretty
Especially
much.
Mondays.
Yeah.
So Chris's dog was sad. Well, that's
Sad.
that's sad. Yeah, that's. So were there any cool games that got played this week? We'll talk about precons in a minute, but any non-precon games that are worth talking about?
I played one over the weekend. Played quite a few over the weekend, actually, with Chris and a bunch of people at the shop.
Yeah, because you guys went and did Chris played in the 1v1 tournament,
Yeah.
and then you guys just played games after. So first of all, how did the 1v1 go?
Went 2-3, lost and winning in for top 8 to a Tigum, the blue-white Tigum, new one.
That was a sweet deck. That ended up winning the tournament.
Yes, he did.
Now, that was your first time doing 1v1, so you were kind of going in unsure of how to
Yeah,
play.
and now after doing it, I know how to modify my deck better and realized going in I played Skullbriar, the Walking Grave, or Walking Death, whatever his name is. I won't play him again.
Okay.
But I made him more of a type of Voltron type of deal, and that is not the way to go in 1v1.
Okay.
It's about the long game, isn't it?
Yes.
Okay. Interesting. I'll have to come down and at least watch one of those at some point, if not playing it. So you played some games, and afterwards Max came down to the shop. I wasn't around, but you came and played some games then afterwards.
Yep, I came down around 1:30, did some family stuff in the morning, and ended up staying at the shop till 11 with a small dinner break.
Okay.
Yep.
So that was like a full day of
A
jamming
full day
games.
of jamming games, and I think the best part of the day was a non-EDH event.
Oh, that was so much fun.
So our local game store does grab bags, they call them. They're $1. It's a plain white envelope stuffed with anywhere from 12 to 15 cards, you think?
Just random cards.
I think it's like 15 to 17.
15 to 17 of random cards. We're not talking your generic booster packets. Bulk crud
Right.
with the chance to get like a prize card for like an expedition or a free soda or a free standard pack. All the way up to there's mana vaults in there.
Mm-hmm.
And there's I pulled a Vorapede out of one of them
Right.
one time, and I usually buy one a week just to do it.
And it's $1. So we had this crazy idea to do a draft with these grab bags. And we had a full 8-man pod doing
So you
this.
draft with the ultimate chaos draft, essentially.
Yes. And that's what it was chaos. Between the foreign cards in every pack that everybody's going, what does this do? So you know one card in every pack for sure.
Right.
To the opening your plain white envelope and you see 2 riot gears and 3 healing salves in your pack. And you're like, by pack 3, everybody's like, yeah, I'm still in my colors. I'm like, you're in colors? I'm just picking what's good and just seeing what happens.
5 color good stuff in the chaos draft.
I ended up playing blue-green because no one was drafting blue for some reason. Pack 1, pick 1 was Aqueous Form. I'm like, that's a perfect card to take.
Sure, that's a
Yeah.
good card.
You played phasing too.
Yeah, Teferi's Sanctuary, I think it's called. 3 mana, blue artifact. At the beginning of each player's upkeep, they choose lands, creatures, or global enchantments, and those phase out until their next turn,
Okay.
what phasing does.
Which is perfect for a chaos draft because that's pretty chaotic.
Yeah, except for I forgot how phasing worked. So
Teferi's Realm.
Realm, there we go.
But overall, it was a blast.
Nice.
It got to the point where people are like, doesn't matter, let's just do it. And
Sure.
but it's definitely, I think everybody should do one once in their life.
I will have to try that at some point. But last night, I drew 22 cards off or whatever it was, 18 cards off a Minions Murmurs against Max. And you weren't there for that. Minions Murmurs is a 4-mana black sorcery. Draw a card for each creature you control and take a point of damage.
Okay.
So, I had like 18 creatures or something stupid. I'm like, I'm going to draw the cards. And I had 20-some life, 30-some life.
And it knocked you down to like 23.
20, and Max swung for 20 or 21.
I swung for 23.
So you're one short of what I had. No, I
Nope.
blocked something.
I swang for lethal for getting you out of blocker.
Yes.
And if I would have swung with my entire team, you would have died.
So I blocked one. But either way, he either could have killed me or it got so close.
Yep.
But I got so caught up in the draw 18 cards for 4 mana. I'm doing it.
Right.
So I get how that happens.
Especially in Mardu, that's a hell of a draw.
Right, exactly. And I would probably do it again.
You do like wasting your life.
I absolutely do. So let's talk precons for a few minutes because the last show we recorded on Monday and then we played with the precons on Tuesday, and we're recording this one later than usual. So we've actually played twice with our precon decks since the last time we recorded. The first night was just with them stock out of the box, and then the last night everyone could make $10 worth of changes. So let's do the first night. We played the stock precons. Did either of you two notice anything with the decks that like you weren't anticipating? Oh, this one played much better than I thought it would. This one played much worse. Was there anything that jumped out at you from the first night?
I think each deck has its strengths in different parts of the game.
Okay.
I think Cats is a super fast deck. If you can get out early and get ahead, you're going to win. I think Vampires are in it for the long haul, especially if you're playing Edgar. And I think Wizards falls in that mid-range where you kind of just keep tempo with everybody and you might be able to outlast everybody if you play the right spells. And Dragons is just fun. I didn't play against any Dragon decks.
I didn't see the Dragon deck either, actually, to be honest. Neither night.
I have no voice in this matter, seeing how I have not played with my precon yet.
Oh, that's right. You did not play in the first one.
Yep. I watched one game last night, but other than that, I haven't played in it.
Well, the first night out of the box, Wizards was much more of a mess than I thought it would be. And again, that could be just bad draws in that first game playing against it.
I've heard that from a lot of people, though.
But it seemed like, I think Wizards had the 3 best commanders. I think all those commanders are all really, really good. The Dragon ones are decent too, but I think front to back, all 3 of those Wizards commanders are perfectly excellent cards. The problem is they're different enough that the deck, the way it's constructed, is trying to work with all 3 of them, and it winds up working with none of them, kind of. And the Wizard deck, after tuning it then last night, he put a few more Wizards in it, and it still had the same problem. Like, I think when the decks are all done, the Wizard decks are going to be really strong individually, but they're going to require a ton more changes in the rest of the decks to get there. Whereas the Cat decks played good the first night, and they played better last night, and it seemed much easier to make those Cat decks work.
I would totally agree with that because I'm actually playing the Cat deck and I lived that.
Sure.
I could see it being easier, too, with the Cat deck, seeing how it is a 2-color deck
That
compared to
helps
the
too.
3 colors.
You have a lot more freedom in your mana base on a budget. I thought Balin was really cool to see, and Balin worked. Just even seeing the Balin in the $10, the stock precon with $10 and changes, Balin's better than Kemba is in a tuned deck.
Yes.
Again, maybe that it's one game, so maybe he just got great rolls. But being able to equip all your stuff for 2 mana or 3 mana,
Yep.
whatever it is,
1 in a white.
is fantastic. In that the axe that makes axes,
Bloodforge Battle
the
Axe.
axe of all the axes, yes. Man, that's fantastic in a multiplayer game.
Yeah.
Now, I don't know where else you would run it, because having to equip 14 axes or whatever afterwards is you just can't do it. But you can in Balin for 2 mana, and all of a sudden he's now a 30-something. It got stupid very quickly. And that was by no means a tuned version of that deck.
No.
So I really liked seeing Balin, and that's going to be a strong That's going to be a strong deck. First week, untuned. Going in, I thought Mathis was hot garbage. Having seen Mathis being played, he's hot garbage. That deck just, it's a political deck that doesn't really do political stuff.
Well, you don't have any political backup cards with it,
You don't, and even if you do, I just don't know how well it does those things.
especially in those colors.
Yeah. I played Edgar the first week, and it ran really well out of the box. I tuned it this week, and I put all the 1-drops in it. So I put so many cheap cards in the deck that I was able to make 28 cards worth of changes in the deck for my $10 limit. And it played well. The problem with playing bad 1-drops in Edgar is that bad 1-drops aren't that fun. And it worked, but I kept thinking, I kind of want to play cool vampires instead of this 1-drop bad vampire. So that's the real thing. I think it's better. The deck functions better playing a bunch of fast 1-drop vampires. I just don't think it's as fun, maybe. We'll see how it goes as I continue to tune it. But I missed that last night. I was like, I miss dropping out Lycia, or I miss dropping, Sangromancer. Because I pulled a bunch of the vampires out for the cheap 1-drops. And there's no sense of satisfaction dropping an Asylum Visitor as there is when you drop Bloodbaron of Vizkopa. Bloodbaron of Vizkopa feels fantastic to play, and it doesn't feel nearly as good playing 3 1-drops, even if technically they get you 3 tokens and there's more damage in the field than there is with 1 Bloodbaron. It doesn't feel as good.
No.
I think that's really it I saw from precons that jumped out at me. Arabu, because you played Arabu.
I play Arabo. My changes this week, I subbed in 12 cards for my $10 limit, and I just went full ramp. I put in every cheap ramp spell I could, because that was my issue. Week 1 was there's only 2 or 3 ramp spells in this deck, and they cost 2 to 5 mana, and I want to be able to play Arabo faster. I wasn't concerned about getting my cat on the board, or a cat on the board on turn 1. I wanted to be able to get Arabo out and get all the other cats out with no issues. So I put in all the Kadama's Reach, Skyshroud Claim, all the ones that really, Nature's Lore, the Signet into the deck, and it sped that deck up very fast.
Now, are you planning on adding draw and stuff like that this week?
I will probably add some draw. And
Rich Card's expertise feels like it's...
And it's 50 cents. It's
yeah,
so
that
nice.
Definitely needs to go in that deck.
Yeah.
I don't think that card is going to stay 50 cents. I think it'll be one of those that starts crawling upwards of the $2 to $3 range.
It should be eventually. It's a really, really, really strong card.
And I also think I'm going to put in some recursion, so I think I'll probably put in Seasons Past.
Okay.
One of my favorite cards.
My feeling playing against it was cats aren't that strong of a tribe, and Arabo makes them a strong tribe. Having him there, even just the Eminence trigger, makes those cats difficult to deal with. So he himself makes a not particularly amazing tribe. Well, you have to watch out for it the whole time. So I liked seeing that. That was a cool deck to see get tuned, and I want to see more of that as you go with it. So was there any interesting feedback from listeners this week, Chris?
Yeah, we heard from James Unquist on Facebook. His vote for the most impressive new card for Commander 17 is Traverse the Outlands, followed by Disrupt Decorum. If you guys both remember what those cards are.
Traverse is that gross land card where you ramp for each
yes.
power. It's kind of Rich Card's expertise for land ramp.
For land, yep.
Yeah, man, that card is really, really strong.
I think it's like a $5 or $6 card right now.
Well, and the problem with that too is, particularly these ones that are released only in the commander decks, the only way to buy singles is if someone has torn apart their deck and pulled that single out. And why would you pull that out of your green-white deck?
I don't see a reason to pull it out.
I mean, clearly some shops are doing that and they're taking decks apart, but this isn't like a standard set where stores are cracking hundreds of boxes in some cases. If it's a huge store, there's only so many of these precons floating around, and most people, the average person who buys one, is probably just going to keep that card in the deck or put it in another one of their decks. You're not going to. If I see one of these in a binder somewhere at a store people are trading, I will be shocked.
I would jump on it.
Yeah,
exactly, for sure. Because I'm never going to be like, oh man, why is this? I wish I wouldn't have traded for that $5 disgusting ramp card that will never get reprinted outside Commander product. I mean, it's not going to get reprinted anywhere.
No.
Yeah.
So yeah, that card is fantastic. What was the other one he mentioned?
Disrupt Decorum.
Disrupt Decorum is also one that we won't probably see outside of. I mean, maybe in a conspiracy product, but That's also been cool. I saw it cast one time, and it totally
Screwed the game up.
screwed the game in a good way. I mean, it was in a multiplayer game. It was fun to see.
Yep.
I have not seen that cast yet, nor have I seen Traverse the Outlands cast yet. But
I have not seen Traverse cast yet either, because I don't have. But I want one for a deck. I have at least 2 decks that want them.
I did contemplate taking all my 2-color lands out of the cat deck and putting basics in just for this card.
Well, sure, and there's a lot of situations where, particularly in that deck, you don't need the dual lands that
No.
badly. The bad come into play tap dual lands.
Because there were times last night where I had a cat at power of 1919. Okay, I'll go get 19 basic lands out of my deck.
Exactly.
Right.
And particularly in the precons where you kind of know, for the most part, what are in the decks. I mean, some changes got made, but no one was adding Armageddon to the deck list.
No.
And there isn't one in the deck to start with, so you're pretty safe for doing a crazy ramp play that no one's going to blow up your lands.
Now I wish I was playing white in my
Just
precon just to do that.
just to pack Armageddon. I'm putting in Jockala Hops in my Edgar deck tonight just for that purpose.
So we also heard from a Stephen Arnquist who said that stealing a Seedborn Muse with Captivating Vampire is crazy fun. So I'm assuming he has a vampire deck and totally took a Seedborn Muse from someone and just obliterated people.
Yes, I would agree with that because I once stole a Seedborn Muse from Max with my Talran deck. And being able to untap all your lands in mono blue every turn, that's definitely cheating.
Yeah.
So, yeah, no, absolutely. Seedborn Muse is, if anything, might be an underrated card. I mean, it's maybe underrated isn't the right word. Underplayed. That card.
I don't see a whole lot of people playing it.
There's no situation where it's not good. If you're not playing it, it's because you're like sticking to a theme or something, or can't afford it because it's a $25 card.
Yes.
Now. But power level, you could jam it in any deck and you would never feel bad for having it there.
Nope.
Yeah, there's a reason that what was that? Corsair Crufix got banned.
Prophet of Crufix.
Prophet of Corsair Prophet. They're all from the Crufix family.
It's all Crufix.
So I just want to say thank you to both of you for listening and sending us feedback. Now, I do have a question for both of these fellows. Are you guys related, or is this just mere coincidence?
They have the same last name?
Yes. So yeah, shout at us. Let me know if you guys are related, or if this is coincidence, because if it's coincidence, it's just mind-blowing.
So how about any news this week, Max?
Yeah. So today there was an article on the Mothership, and it described that they are reclassifying 14 different creatures to be classified as dinosaur in their type line.
So we'll have more dinosaurs for the Dino Tribal stuff coming out of Ixalan.
Yes. The most notable one would be Deathmist Raptor from Dragons of Tarkir. Is now going to be Dragon Lizard, I think is what they reclassified it
I
as.
saw Fungasaur. Basically anything that ends in Sor for the most part was
Really?
on there. Yeah.
The one I was surprised not to see was Gahiji, the Honored One.
That never occurred to me till you mentioned that, but like it looks like a dinosaur.
He's the Naya one from Commander 13, where whenever a creature you control attacks, it gets +2/+0.
Whenever it attacks one of your opponents,
Right.
it gets +2/+0.
Doesn't he look like a cat, though?
No, he's
No,
like,
he's
he's like
like
a T-Rex.
Like a dinosaur Terastodon kind of combo. But he could easily have been a dinosaur, and he's in the Naya colors.
Right.
Max is making little T-Rex. Should have video just for that. It never occurred to me, but once you mentioned it, I was like, oh man, that would have been perfect, because then it gives you an alternate Dino Commander too. That was I think kind of a blown opportunity.
Mm-hmm.
And there were some other weird ones too that like did some, like this thing is a dinosaur lizard, but this one isn't. This is a dinosaur beast. But yeah, I liked the Fungasaur was on there, even though I don't know who's running Fungasaur anymore. But they
Right.
they dug deep, so there's plenty of Naya dinos now for anybody who wants to build that deck.
Right. And then late last week, maybe over the weekend, I can't exactly remember when, we got previews into the Planeswalker decks for Ixalan. So the two Planeswalkers heading up those decks are Hatley. I'm Dinosaur Knight. I'm sure I'm pronouncing her name wrong. We'll wait till someone at Wizards actually says it out loud. She is 4 red-white for a legendary Planeswalker, Hatley. Her +2 is put 2 +1/+1 counters on up to 1 target dinosaur you control. Her -3 is target dinosaur you control deals damage equal to its power to target creature you don't control. And her -7 is dinosaurs you control get +4/+4 until end of turn. She comes in with 4 loyalty counters. She is definitely all about the dinosaurs, and that's about it.
Yeah, I mean, Not that okay. So first of all, these are intentionally not good. They don't want you playing them in standard. So they've intentionally been making weak versions of Planeswalkers for these intro decks. This one's really weak though. Like some are weaker than others.
It's too niche. Like it, you have to play dinos.
If you're not playing Dino Tribal, you're not running this deck.
No.
And even in Dino Tribal, if you're running this card, it's mostly because you're really wanting to stay with it on the theme. Like it's not better than probably any other option you could run. It's just you're like, it's a dinosaur night. I want to run it. I'm gonna put the one dinosaur planeswalker in my deck to do it.
Right.
Versus Jace.
Jace, Ingenious Mind Mage, 4 generic mana, 2 blue mana for legendary planeswalker Jace. Comes in with 5 loyalty counters. His +1 is draw a card. His second +1 is untap all creatures you control. And his -9 is gain control of up to 3 target creatures.
I love this card.
No, this is
Yes.
terrible. Terrible, terrible,
We're
terrible.
going to get into this argument again.
Yes, we are.
Yeah. Okay. It's obviously not
Great.
great, but the question you guys are asking is it playable in Commander outside of like
Super Friends.
right outside of like wanting to jam every Jace into a Jace deck or Teferi mono blue planeswalkers where there's just only so many mono blue planeswalkers. So, Chris, you think this one is actually EDH playable just
Yes.
generically? 6 mana is a lot. 6 mana draws you 4 cards with opportunity.
Yes, it does.
So in this case, you pay 6 and you draw a card, but you have a 6 loading planeswalker sitting there to soak up damage.
And he can, instead of drawing a card, you can untap all creatures you control.
But why would you do that? You draw cards in EDH. That's the goal.
I'm just thinking of, I can go into an Azuri package and untap all my creatures. I could go into an Azami package
And
and
untap.
untap all my creatures to retap them to draw cards. Plus, as Dana mentioned, he becomes 6 loyalty for 6 mana.
Which usually means save yourself 6 damage.
Usually.
I'm kind of in the middle. No, I'm not. I get what you're saying, Chris, but I don't know if I would run it. I don't know
No.
if he'd find a home anywhere else. I think that's a valid point that, like, if EDH was a 150 card format, would he have a home on Azami or something? Then maybe.
Yes.
Yeah.
But I don't see how he makes the cut in any deck. Unless you are specifically being like, I'm playing Teferi Super Friends and there's only 14 options. This gives me 15.
My theory behind him is to use his second +1, you have to be stabilized or ahead in the game to
Okay.
play him. But if this is your only play on turn 6 is to play Jace, 6 mana to draw a card is terrible.
Yeah.
And you have nothing else.
I don't know. Maybe it's just because I'm on a kick of making really weak detuned decks or something.
Maybe.
And you have a few turns too before you have to worry about his ult going off. So even if someone plays him and draws the card, technically he can soak up 6 damage, but they can also just say, so he's got a Phyrexian Arena that doesn't do damage for the next 3 turns, and I'm going to kill the person by that.
Yeah.
Because he's really no threat to do anything else.
I could see him in a Pillow Fort deck with green, doubling season, comes out with 10, -9, take 3 creatures immediately.
Yeah, I mean, I could see him in Angus McKenzie.
Right.
He comes on an Angus, there's possibly a doubling season out, sure.
Yep.
In a Super Friends deck, maybe.
Yeah, we're going way off, into what it should go into as to not every type of deck.
Particularly because, as Max mentioned reading the card, these are legendary planeswalkers, which segues us into the body of the show, which is the rule change to planeswalkers, making them legendary. So we mentioned Jace in a Super Friends deck, and that's what we're going to talk about, because that's like a pretty big deal, I think. This affects a lot of parts of the game. So let's do the nitty-gritty here first. The announcement was made by Matt Tabak.
Tabak.
Man, I'm bad at that names. So Matt Tabak wrote, this was last week, but this was something that we kind of thought was coming because there was that leaked Ixalan sheet and people could read the Jace saying legendary.
Yes.
But what he says is, starting with this set, all planeswalkers, past, present, and future, will have the super type of legendary. They will also be subject to the legend rule. The planeswalker uniqueness rule is going away. In short, everything that's true about legendary permanents will now be true about legendary planeswalkers. Also note this does not mean legendary planeswalkers can be your commander unless the card says so. In short, planeswalkers are now legends, and that means you can have different versions of the same planeswalker in play simultaneously, whereas you couldn't before. And it's the same as any legend. So before you could have Miri Cat Warrior out along with Miri the Cursed because they are different versions of the same character. The same is now true of planeswalkers. You can have Jace Architect of Thought out along with Jace
Mind Sculptor.
the Mind Sculptor. That affects a ton of different things. So let's dig into what it affects. And I think the first thing we will talk about is 6 specific commanders that get affected by this. And we can just kind of go down the list and talk about how it affects these cards, because these guys specifically are the ones where the rule change matters. So Captain Sisay is the first one on the list, and it's the first one to talk about because she was already a good commander. For those that don't know, Sisay is a Selesnya. We don't have to go into all her stats because that's really not relevant, but she can tap and search your library for a legendary card, reveal it, and put it in your hand. So she tutors a legendary, which means she went from being able to tutor a legendary creature mostly, but I mean, you could grab a legendary land with her as well.
Or an artifact.
Or an artifact or whatever. And now she can grab planeswalkers, which means, number one, if you're running a planeswalker in your deck, you can now grab it. It means you can make her into a Super Friends commander. I mean, that's a big deal, I think.
I think it's a big deal.
It definitely opens up a new archetype for her. Being able to play her as a Super Friends commander is something that you couldn't do before.
The only downfall I see to her being as a Super Friends commander, she is Selesnya. So you're very limited on what you can go for. Let's see, Ajani, Nissa, Gruk, Gideon.
Yeah.
I don't know if I'm missing somebody
Elspeth.
in there. Elspeth.
There are 29 planeswalkers she could potentially grab.
There's the 2 colorless. There's Yugen and
Karn.
There's mono white.
Ajani.
Yeah, there's a couple mono white Ajanis. Mono white Nahiri. The Gideons, the Elspeths.
The Garuks.
Grooks.
The Nissas.
Grooks, the Nissas.
Then the 2 color Ajanis.
Yep. We're missing at least one.
Freylace.
Freylace, yep.
But still, I mean, even with those ones that we just discussed, I don't foresee it being a super friendish deck when every deck I've ever played against Captain Sisay, they tutor out legendary artifacts to combo off.
Right. I think she'll make a perfectly fair Super Friends commander. And if you're already running Captain Sisay as your legendary creature tutor commander, is there any planeswalker in Selesnya you care about tutoring up before you grab Gaddock Teague or
I guess if you have
Elish Norn, or
if you have to kill something, you could go for
maybe
Elspeth or Freylace to blow up an artifact or something. I mean, if it's like mandatory need to get rid of something.
Sure, because it lets you get one of the pieces that destroys one of the planeswalkers that destroys an artifact or enchantment or something.
Yep.
I think the nice thing about her is the fact that you're in green-white. Those are big ramp colors, so if you wanted to do the Super Friends theme, you shouldn't have an issue with tutoring up an Ugin and having 8 mana
right
to cast him right away.
And you're in doubling season colors,
right.
Which is a big deal.
I think that's a big plus side for her is you're in the right colors for Super Friends without the blue and the red.
I think it's an interesting change. I think she gets a little stronger as a regular commander that she, the way she already was, for the reason you mentioned, Chris. You can grab an answer easier than you could before. And I think it opens up an archetype for her as a Super Friends commander that isn't that overpowered in her case. Selesnya Super Friends isn't going to be dominating your shop anytime soon, I wouldn't think.
Now, I do believe her version in foil, original foil, like price spiked like 5 times what its original price.
Almost all of these price spiked in some stupid way, but yeah, hers definitely shot up. Although I don't, again, like, I think it might have been Jason Alt on Twitter was talking about why has being able to tutor up a Johnny made Sisay more in demand. I mean, like, it's a good point. Like, that shouldn't make her a better card. I mean, it is. That's kind of hyperbole on his part, because she is better, but like not that much better.
No, because I foresee it. She's still going to be the same type of deck, searching up Paradox Engine and going off like they usually do.
Next we've got Jeru with Eyes Open.
Didgeridoo,
my boy. I built a Jeru deck right after it came out, or Djeru or Jeru, however you pronounce it. And he's a creature, 5 mana. When he comes into play, you may search your library for a Planeswalker card, reveal it, and put it into your hand. So Jerry was better as someone who's played this deck, and he's not good.
I think he's going to be much better now, though.
Well, being able to not have to pick and choose what Planeswalkers I play based on what's already out is going to make the deck a lot easier, if nothing else.
Yeah.
Because right now I'm doing a lot of... Because, number one, it's 4 different Ajanis or 5 different Ajanis in the deck in mono white, and there's 5 Gideons and a couple Elspeths, and then the one Nahiri, the one Karn, and the one Yugen. So basically I'm having to do a lot of, okay, well, I already have one Ajani in play, and I drew one, so now I'm obviously not going to tutor an Ajani up, but I have one Gideon out too, so what Gideon do I, So I do a lot of that right now when I play Jerry. I have to make a decision about what Planeswalker to get. Well, now I just get the best one, because who cares?
Right. Like, yeah, I agree with what you're saying. I don't think it makes him better, but it makes how the deck operates better.
It's going to make the deck much easier to pilot in terms of decision making, and it'll probably make it stronger. Just being able to have multiples out simultaneously is more powerful. But I mean, it's mono white Super Friends.
Right.
Well, I can see having multiple Elspeths out and making more tokens than you could if you just had one out.
Mm-hmm.
Could definitely make it a stronger version.
Oh yeah, for sure. It's still, again, it's not going to be dominating your shop anytime soon. But I mean, I bet you see people giving it a try that weren't before. All right, what else is on the list here?
Our next one is Empress Galena, and her ability is 2 blue and tap, gain control of target legend or legendary permanent.
So this is like, I guarantee there's 10,000 of these sitting in bulk boxes, not in card stores, but like in people's
house,
in someone's closet, in the shoebox and back. And
surprisingly, I looked through all my bulk. I do not have one of these.
I found 2. I had 2.
I think I have 2.
And it also has shot up to like $30, something stupid, from 30 cents, which is not justified at all. I mean, not that being able to steal Planeswalkers isn't really useful, but you're in a format where every single person already had a legend that you could steal sitting in their command zone.
Yep.
Almost guaranteed to have one on the field at all times that you can take. Being able to take Planeswalkers is nice, but does that suddenly make mono blue Empress Galena any better?
No.
Yes, it does. It does make her better, but like, does it make her better enough to justify?
I can't justify making her as a commander.
No,
I could justify her taking up a slot now.
Sure.
In a mono blue deck of some sort, or in a blue splash something or whatever.
Well, or Atraxa Super Friends, or Angus Mackenzie even, or any of the 5-color Super Friends decks that maybe you wouldn't have ran her before. And they're like, oh, now I'll take a Planeswalker that I can, proliferate with Atraxa and do something else with. Sure, that makes sense.
Yeah, I think it depends on your meta. I mean, in our local shop, we don't have a lot of Super Friends decks anymore. 1 or 2. But
I don't envision anyone adding this to their Super Friends deck, I wouldn't think.
No.
I don't see why I would neither.
It's definitely better, but it's not going to change the meta, and it's not worth going from 30 cents to $30.
Right.
It's a moat all over again.
Right. Yeah. Well, yeah. Reki, History of Kamigawa. We'll let Chris do this.
Oh, Reki.
You got wrecked.
So Reki History Kamigawa. Whenever you play a legendary spell, you draw a card. So, Danny, you want to shed some light onto what you think about Reki, seeing how you personally play it?
So normally I offer my opinion on any subject at all, whether I'm in any position to be an expert. I act like I am. I can actually offer an expert opinion on this card, having been one of the few people in the universe to have played this as my commander. There's 88 decks in EDHREC that are Reki decks,
and you're one of them.
One of them's mine. He's definitely strong. First of all, he's much stronger as part of a deck because Sisay can tutor him up.
Yes.
And then put him on the field, and then Sisay can then start grabbing other stuff to draw cards off it. So your Sisay Super Friends deck is going to be running it. He's probably going to now have a home when it attracts the Super Friends. Angus Mackenzie possibly. So being in other Super Friends decks, he's now much more useful. Being able to draw off the Planeswalkers you were already playing, and in Sisay's case, being tutorable with her is really, really good. As a commander, I've taken a long look at my deck. I'm going to change a couple things, but it's not going to be world changing. You could run him now if you wanted to as a mono green Super Friends commander. So
no.
It's not. It wouldn't be good. It probably would be worse than Jero is as a mono white Super Friends commander. because drawing off the Planeswalker, there's so few Planeswalkers in mono green, you're stuck at
13.
13, okay.
And that's including the 2 colorless.
So at best case, you're going to draw 13 cards in a game. And that'll never happen. It's just not, it would be not good. But if you're running him like I'm running him, where you've got 25 legends in the deck, and now suddenly you can look and say, okay, well I was running this removal spell, and now I can run Frail Ace as the removal spell because when she comes in play,
Yep, you get to draw.
And I'll get a card for doing the same thing, and then I had this ramp spell, but now I can run Garruk, and he untaps lands, which is kind of like ramp, so I'll swap that out and draw a card in the process.
Yeah.
So I think he gets a little bit better, because I was running no Planeswalkers in my Recce deck, and I think
I do believe you were running 1.
I wasn't right before this change, and now I'm running 3.
I thought that you ran Nissa Vestrodsir, the one that flips.
Oh yeah, but she is a legendary creature when she comes into play.
She's still Planeswalker. Come on now.
Right. But when she flips, it doesn't do anything, so it doesn't change her.
Yep.
And I'm adding 2 Garuks and Frail Ace to my deck. So I'm adding 3 Planeswalkers, which is 3 more cards I draw off of. And it's going to be a little bit better, but it's not going to be anything crazy.
I do like the idea of how you can now go fetch him out and then gain value off of your Planeswalkers as well as your other legendaries.
Yes. So yeah, his value boost is going to be in other Super Friends decks, I think.
So you think he's going to spike from $1 card to
He
what,
has.
$1.50? Oh, did he really?
He's up to, I think he's like almost $8 now.
He is.
What?
TCG market price has him at 10, at 7, and median price is at 10.
Get wrecked, son.
I built the deck and I bought my foil. The foil I think was $1.
Did you get that at the GP?
I might have. Not this one, the last
Year, yeah.
Yeah, I think I did. So yeah, it was maybe $1 for the foil. And I remember thinking to myself, okay, someday this might spike up to $1.50. Like as a joke, I was thinking.
That's what I was thinking.
The next commander that this hits a little bit is Teferi Temporal Archmage, who is himself a Planeswalker.
But legal as a commander.
Who is one of the legal as commander Planeswalkers. Teferi's pretty good. He was already being ran as a Super Friends commander in Mono Blue just because of his ult, which lets you activate abilities twice on a Planeswalker.
No.
Instant speed.
Instant speed.
Oh, that's right. But on other players' turns.
Yes.
Yep.
He was already pretty solid. So being able to play multiple, this is kind of the same deal as Jeru. He just becomes easier to play now because you don't have to think about it. You can just flop your Jaces.
Yep.
I have not seen him played, though, as a general since the decks came out, really.
He's always a part of the 99.
Yeah.
Yes.
And he will continue to be part of the 99. And he's better as a single general. And if you really wanted to go mono, I would say probably would be the best mono-colored Planeswalker. If you're doing Super Friends mono-color, he's probably your best choice.
Yep. I think now with the change, I would switch it over having Baby Jace.
Yeah.
Even though Baby Jace gives you looting ability, I would rather have him with the ability to possibly ult and then set you up for God knows how long.
He does also have essentially a scry 2 on his +1. So
Yep.
And he protects himself. Doesn't protect himself. You untap permanents. Is that what it is? Untap 4 target permanents. So creatures to act as blockers. So he's decent. Again, I don't think it's going to change. Like all these guys that we've touched on so far and will touch on are better, I think, undoubtedly. But like nothing becomes broken by this. I don't think that we've seen so far. Which takes us to the last one.
That is Yomiji, who bars the way.
You shall not pass.
And he looks like he's a spirit, but he's like got a bunch of sticks growing out of his head. That's a strange piece of art.
Yep, and he pretty much says whenever a legendary permanent other than himself is put into the graveyard, return it to its owner's hand. So that's awesome for Planeswalker recursion, in my opinion.
Except he costs 7 mana, and he doesn't do anything until that happens.
Yeah.
So maybe in your Super Friends deck,
I don't know.
I feel like in a mono white deck, he's worse than Jeru, who isn't that good to be that great to begin with.
Because he
I
doesn't
could see him slotted in, but I could not see him as a general.
I looked at it in my list, and I was like, man, I just don't know if he's better. Because I also have, right now in my Jeru deck, what I'm doing is I've got a couple different ways. I think it's Mistveiled Plains, and there's another card to put cards from your graveyard into your library.
Yep.
So that's what I'm doing to recycle Planeswalkers, and then I recast Jeru or Blink him or whatever. I guess this brings them back to your hand. It makes it a little bit easier to do that step, but I'm not sure if that's worth 7 mana on a creature that can be killed. You know, you have to have him out and have him alive while your Planeswalker dies to bring it back to your hand. I just don't know how frequently that's going to happen.
And he's shut down by anything that exiles cards in the graveyard.
I mean, he's interesting, and he's playable, and someone's going to make a deck out of him that they probably didn't before. But I don't know if it's
And why
gonna
doesn't
be
he have
worth
flying?
seeing.
He's a spirit.
I know, exactly.
Give him flying, then maybe he'd be a little bit better.
The one thing I thought of, there's 2 white commanders, Lieutenant Kurtar and Major Teru, both old border. I think I can't remember what set they're out of Odyssey and something else, I think. And they both have, like, I think one is sacrifice to destroy an attacking creature, and one sacrifices to destroy all black creatures, I believe.
Ooh.
But if you're running, like if you were running Yomiji, you could run those in the deck and, sacrifice to destroy the creature and bounce it back to your hand, replay them.
Yep.
But again, 7 mana to bring this guy into play in white.
That's impossible.
That's a lot of mana in mono white.
Nothing's impossible, my friend.
In mono white, that's impossible.
No, you got all your mana doubling rocks.
Very
your
true.
Extraplanar lens.
I know.
Cage
You can
Sun.
get there, but as we discussed last week, it's challenging.
It is a lot of work to get there. There's 2 more I kind of added here as a joke. There's Livonia Salone and Ayumi the Last Visitor. Livoni is Gruul and Ayumi is mono green, and they have one thing in common. They both have legendary landwalk. So why is this relevant, you ask? Well, according to the rules on Song of the Dryads and Imprison in the Moon, any enchanted permanent loses card types, subtypes, and colors it previously had, but it keeps super types. Legendary is super type. So essentially, if you Imprison in the Moon or Song of the Dryads a Planeswalker, it becomes a land and keeps its legendary super type, meaning it's now a legendary land. So Livonia Salone and Ayumi the Last Visitor that have legendary landwalk can legendary landwalk over to hit you in the face if someone Song of the Dryads or Imprisons in the Moon your Planeswalker.
So, question. I imprison the moon, your Garuk.
Yep.
So is it legendary imprison in the moon? Is that how the legend rule is going to work? Because then what if Chris imprisons the moon, another one of your
It keeps
Planeswalkers?
its name.
So it would be...
It keeps its name and any super types, but that's it. So it's now a legendary land named Jace Beleren or Jace Architect of Thought or whatever it is.
Okay.
But it's a legendary land. So you can legendary land walk with these 2 terrible Planeswalkers that are now slightly less terrible. So I will offer this out here right now for any listener who can, and I will take your word for it that no one's going to cheat this. If you kill somebody in a commander game, legendary land walking with one of these 2 awful cards, if you can kill somebody legendary land walking across a Planeswalker that's been imprisoned in the Moon or Song of the Dryads, we will send you a foil reliquary tower. I've got a spare one at home in my legends folder, in my foil folder. Send us a screenshot on Twitter. You can reach us at CMDR Central, or go to Facebook, send us a picture. We are on Facebook at /CMDR Central. Get a hold of us with proof that you did it, and a foil reliquary tower is yours.
I want to see this so bad.
Talk about the jankiest possible interaction with the legendary rule. That would be it. We mentioned a bunch of Super Friends decks, and we can quick touch on this as well. They all get better.
Most definitely.
I mean, just generically, it doesn't matter what your commander is. Like, those commanders we discussed before are all specific ones that get better. But a lot of Super Friends commanders are just the commander because of their colors, or because, like in a Traxxas situation, she proliferates, so she puts counters on Super Friends. We mentioned Angus McKenzie because he has a fog built in. But a lot of them, like Progenitus, doesn't do anything with Planeswalkers. He's just 5 colors and he's good. But all of those decks get better, or at least easier to pilot for sure.
Yes.
So first of all, like, what are your thoughts on Super Friends decks to begin with?
They're annoying.
You really don't want to read my notes because I went into harshness as to how much I despise them.
Really? So why is that?
Because pretty much, aside from one player that I've ever played against who plays Super Friends decks, They hem and they haw and they take 15-minute turns and accomplish absolutely nothing.
It absolutely lends itself to dirtling, which is not a lot of fun to play against.
It may be my tournament mindset, but you should take a good turn, but you don't waste your time.
Sure.
You should be passing it on to the next player.
That is definitely something I've seen in Super Friends decks, for sure. I agree with that. They also have the problem, and problem isn't the right word, but every Super Friends deck I play against, you always have to do that thing where you watch it and go, okay, what's out right now? What are the 3 abilities? I have to remember those 3 abilities and remember what the loyalty is at it so I can figure out if I have to kill it now before it gets to that ult. Do I care about the ult? Because oftentimes you do, because a lot of times they're so strong the game is going to end if someone gets an ult and gets some crazy emblem or something.
Yep.
So it just winds up using a lot of your brain power to keep track of it. And then you feel like you have to deal with, like, what I feel like happens in Super Friends decks is somebody else winds up winning because I feel like I have to keep that Super Friends deck in check.
And no one else really does.
Well, either no one else does, or even if they do, you're throwing so many resources at keeping it in check, because if you don't, it's going to go off, that somebody else builds up their board state in a way that is a slightly less threatening, and you feel like, okay, well, I can deal with that in 3 turns, but I got to deal with this right now. And then the 3 turns comes and you've used all your resources or used all your time and energy up on that Super Friends deck, and that other person then goes off.
Yeah, I agree with you there. I think the biggest problem in my mind is there's not good ways to deal with planeswalkers. Like, there's not a lot of mass sweepers.
Sure.
There's not a lot of targeted removal for planeswalkers, so they are extremely hard to deal with in general. So you're wasting the very few resources there are in the color you might be playing. I mean, They aren't in all 5 colors.
I think it's mainly black, and I think there's
Black
that one white
and white.
wrath.
Yep. Planar Cleansing hits them, so you have 2 wraths in white.
2 wraths, okay.
But I mean, green, blue, you can bounce them, but that just doesn't stop anything.
Green, I guess you can Beast Within because it's a
Right.
permanent, and you can hit it with like a, what's the terrible 6-drop from Arabian Nights that actually sees play once in a while in deck, Desert Twister.
Oh yeah, I forgot about that card.
yeah.
I don't think I've ever played it.
Or Scour from Existence. I mean, there's ways to deal with them, but like not commonly ran. Hero's Downfall does it. Is it Dreadbore? I always confuse Dreadbore and Terminate. One of them
Dreadbore does it.
Yep.
Dreadbore hits Planeswalkers.
The new one from Ixalan is going to do it. The Vraskas.
Oh, I'm so excited for that card.
And it's instant speed too, which is
Yep.
really nice.
4 for an instant speed, destroy target planeswalker or creature.
I think it's
and
exile.
you gain 2 life.
Oh, it is exile.
and it
you
is exile, and you
it's
gain 2
exile, too.
life.
That's nice.
Yeah. Whenever I see a Super Friends deck, I just make sure to relay to the table that hit the player, don't worry about the planeswalkers until you absolutely have to.
But know what it
Right.
does too. Like
Yes.
you need to know. You need to read the cards and pay attention.
When someone says the Bant Tameo is going to ult, you better
Yes.
stop that.
The one that used to drive me nuts is there was a guy in the shop who had a Super Friends deck. I think it was Narset, and he ran the 2 Japanese
Jason
Jaces,
Chandra.
the Jason Chandra ones. I'm like, man, I don't remember what what those ones do. Those,
He should have never opened up that box to begin
Right,
with,
well,
because they are
right.
worth money sealed in the box.
but yeah, that used to frustrate. I used to hate seeing them. Like, come on, just. It's one thing if it's like a creature whose ability you just know, but I don't remember what Chandra and Noir or Jace Belren's exact abilities are, or which one's a +1 or which one's a -3. I just,
Right.
But those all get stronger, undoubtedly.
Yep. I also see another option for your Pillow Fort decks now. Most Pillow Fort decks play the cards that don't, they prevent you from attacking, or you have to pay mana to attack, or you play a Platinum Angel, you can't lose the game. Well, now you have the option of playing dual Gideons and not losing the game.
Right, for sure.
Yep.
Now, I would say this is one thing that our friend Luke had an Angus McKenzie deck, and he said people often missed on that deck was he ran a lot of the Pillow Fort enchantment type things. Look closely at the enchantment, though, because about half of them just say can't attack player.
Yep.
And Planeswalkers are free game in that case. So, and I'm sure I've missed it plenty of times too, but I forget which one, if it's Propaganda. There's a couple different ones where you can still hit the Planeswalker.
I think it's Ghostly Prison.
Prison might be. I'm pretty sure Sphere of Safety says you are a Planeswalker you control.
Yep.
But most of the old ones just say can attack you. So basically, if it's an old border Pillow Fort card, you probably can still swing through and hit a Planeswalker.
Now, who do you think is the best one that's gotten better since this rule?
Like of the ones we just went through, or just in general, like when you think Super Friends,
When you think Super Friends because of the new rule, who do you think is the best one now?
I think Attrax is probably still the best one. I think the ones that take the biggest benefit, I think Narset gets a big benefit because you
can play them both.
can play them both. And
Yep.
in Narset's case, you can't control what the card for the most part. Yeah, I guess you could. There's some top deck manipulation you can do, but for the most part, you don't know what's going to be coming out. So like, oh man, my Planeswalker just killed the other Planeswalker if I cast it. Whereas this, you don't have to worry about it. I don't know if anyone has a Maelstrom Wanderer or Super Friends deck. I'm sure there is one. Same situation there where you don't know what's going to be on the top.
I never thought about Maelstrom Wanderer.
Well, now you don't care. You don't care if your Elspeth comes out
Yeah.
with your Elspeth in play. You're still gonna.
Yep.
They're both going to be there.
Yeah.
Is Maelstrom Wanderer 5 colors?
No,
No,
he's
red and blue, isn't he?
red, blue, green. He's
So I said
teamer.
Elspeth, but
Jace's. We'll just go back to Jace's.
Right.
Yeah, because everyone seems to be in blue. We'll just stick
Right,
with
I guess.
Jace.
I agree with Dana. I think Atraxa is still going to be the strongest. It's still the most popular because everybody has it, unfortunately.
I suppose.
And she protects your Planeswalkers just by being there.
Yep, and making them bigger.
She has Vigilance, you can still swing. She has Death Touch and Lifelink on top of it as a blocker. She has Flying, so she deals with evasion. So she's just a good Planeswalker, or just a good general to have there protecting your Planeswalkers. On top of then, at the end of the turn, she buffs them.
I can get behind all of that.
What else? So now we have a few support cards that get a little bit better here. First one is probably the one that gets the biggest bump. Honor Worn Sheku, which is out of Kamigawa. It's a 3-drop mana rock that you can tap for a colorless. However, you can tap an untapped legendary permanent you control to untap Honor Worn Sheku. If you were already playing in a deck where your commander didn't attack, it's essentially a Worn Power Stone. I mean, if you figure your commander's never doing anything, you're not going to attack or block with it. It's just sitting there being a body like Baral, for example, or
Yep.
Reki to a degree. I ran this in Reki for quite a while. Then it's essentially it's going to be 2 mana most times. That's already pretty decent, even before this rule change. Now, the fact that you can tap your Planeswalkers, because who
Yes.
cares?
Yeah, because they're not doing anything else.
Unless it's a Gideon or the one Sarkhan that turns into a dragon, who cares?
Yes.
Yep.
So all of a sudden, I've got 4 Planeswalkers in play. Hey, my Honor Worn Sheku now taps for 5 mana for a 3-drop mana rock. I mean, it's still colorless, so it's not like perfect, but
That's still really good.
that's fantastic. I would say of all the cards, this is like the biggest buff
Yes.
in a Super Friends deck.
I love the card.
But it was already decent, and now I wasn't running it in Reki, just because I actually wound up attacking with him more than I thought I would.
I've come so close to dying to Reki damage.
And in the colorless, that deck is pretty green intensive, so I wound up. It wasn't something I used often enough. But I'm putting it in Dejeru for sure, because aside from the couple of Gideons that I might swing with, that's a lot of Planeswalkers that I can tap for mana, and I tend to replay him a bunch of times to 2 more Planeswalkers if I don't have a way to blink him or something. So I'm running it in there for
Jeru
sure.
has Vigilance, so you can swing with
Absolutely.
him first.
And then I can tap him to make a few mana.
Yep.
So yeah, this one got a big buff, and the price went from 50 cents to
$2.
is it up to $2?
Yeah, just
That's
shy
a
of
huge
$2.
bump though for an uncommon.
Foil's 20 though.
Oh, wow. Nice.
So let's talk about Lay Bare the Heart. That's a sorcery out of Amonkhet for 1 and a black. And it said, target opponent reveals his or her hand, and you choose a non-legendary, non-land card from it. That player discards it.
This is the one that this is the only one I think on our list that actually gets worse because of this rule change.
Right, and that's exactly what I was
It's
going to say.
way worse. I know I played this for a while in Standard. I was playing a black-blue control shell with Scarab God and everything, and I was using as many hand disruption spells as I could get my hands on, and this was a good one, but not anymore.
Yeah, so it takes a huge hit in Standard. In Commander, you probably weren't running it. I mean, people very rarely run
Nath.
him to turn. Maybe a Nath where you want to stack a bunch of discard spells, but I mean, people don't run the best discard spells, let alone this one.
Yeah, you're more likely to play Mind Twist or Mind Shatter
Right.
or something.
But it technically got worse, and it's worth mentioning because there's just so few of these cards that got impacted that we wanted to kind of touch on all of them. Next, we'll do Thalia's Lancers out of Eldritch Moon. It's a creature with first strike, and when they enter the battlefield, you may search your library for a legendary card and put it into your hand. So it ETBs, tutors a legend, including Planeswalkers now. I mean, it's better. I was not running it into Zero, and I will now because there's no legendary creatures worth fetching, and now I definitely will. I think this is kind of like a Reki situation where, number one, it's not a commander, so you can't make it your commander, but it's much better in some decks. I think you want to blink it. Is it worth 5 mana to tutor up a Planeswalker? I don't know.
If you can recur it or blink it, yeah, then you're
But
gonna.
if you're already running a deck that has Panharmonicon and has Conjurer's Closet,
Yeah.
It might be worth it then.
Yeah, and in my Zero deck, I'm running both of those, and I have a couple different blink spells to blink him. Well, now this does the same thing. If he's not out, it just gives me another option to blink to get another Planeswalker.
Now I know if he were weaker power and toughness, I would probably play him in my Alesha deck.
Oh yeah, for
Because
sure.
I play quite a few legends in there.
So yeah, that's a nice card, and it also got a price bump. I had to dig really deep to figure out how this one would work, or why it would matter. Manamo, School at Water's Edge is a land, and you can tap it for a blue, or you can spend a blue to untap target legendary permanent. So this was already a pretty pricey card because it gets ran in Modern to deal with choke, I think, in a couple decks. They run like 1 or 2 copies because it doesn't get hit by choke.
But it's legendary.
And it's legendary, and it if you're running a blue commander with a tap ability, this is pretty solid.
Yes.
It can untap Planeswalkers now, so I guess that matters. Never. Here was the one situation I thought of. If you have a Gideon or Sarkhan who can attack, and you turn them into creatures and swing and hit somebody, if for whatever reason they play something that prevents your creatures from untapping, whether it's, I guess Meekstone wouldn't work, but like Stasis prevents you from untapping.
Stasis. Don't
So
remind me of those days.
If there was something that, or like maybe an arrest, I don't know if that would work, or detain effect on the creature, but I guess it would cease to be a creature, so that wouldn't apply anymore. I'm not sure if there's any detains that work on permanents. But
Lavinia.
Stasis, yeah. Is it a permanent? Yeah, it is.
Permanence 4 CMC or less, yeah.
So, well, this would, so like one of your, is there a Gideon that's under 4?
Ally of Zendikar, Champion of Justice, of the Trials, so 3.
Trials just the 3 of them.
Yeah. So technically, if your Planeswalker got tapped down and there was a Stasis or Lavinia or something keeping it from untapping it, you can use Manamo Schools at Water's Edge to untap your Planeswalker. And you know what? I'll throw that in the foil Reliquary Tower challenge. If you can make that relevant in a game, then if you beat the people with the Iomi the Last Visitor Landwalk kill, if you can do this in a way that's relevant to the game, we'll send you that. If you can beat those folks in, we'll send you the foil Reliquary Tower. I just can't imagine this is ever going to occur, but technically it can.
How deep did you dig for that one?
Pretty deep. We have one more land here, though.
Untadaki the Cloudkeeper comes into play tapped. Now tap it, pay 2 life, add 2 colorless mana to your mana pool. Spend this mana only to play legendary spells.
So this took a big bump as well.
Mhm.
It went from 50 cents to $8 or $9, and the foils are also like 20 or something. I don't think it's worth it. I wasn't running it in my Reki deck, but I probably should have been. I misread it, and I thought it was cast a legendary creature spell.
No, just a legendary
Just a legendary spell. So when I was looking at it at one point for my Reki deck, I was like, okay, I've got 25 creatures, but of those 25, a couple of them are like mono green for Avaya Pashiri is 1 green, and Azuri is 2 green, and so there's a couple different ones that it wouldn't have helped anyway. So I'm like, oh, it's only 20 spells or 19 spells for creatures. It's not worth it. But then I realized as I was prepping for this, I'm like, oh, it's legendary spells, so it works for Planeswalkers, but it works for artifacts, and I've got another half a dozen legendary artifacts in that deck.
A Chroma's Memorial being the big one.
Right. And actually said half a dozen. It's more like 10 or 12, because like with the Planeswalkers, I'm just short of 40 legendary permanents in that deck. So at this point, looking at it now, then I was like, oh man, I should run it, because it's essentially a second Ancient Tomb at that point. Because it's more than half my spells in that deck it affects.
Yes.
But how many other decks say that? Like, even in your Super Friends Atraxa deck, how many Planeswalkers are you running? 20 maybe at the most? 20, not many more than that. I don't think I've seen.
I'm not sure if the 2 colorless is going to be
right.
good for Super Friends deck, because you're more color heavy.
Just to cast 1 Planeswalker spell to get 1 extra colorless mana. Because if this was a basic land, it would be getting you 1 mana of a color. So you're getting 1 extra mana that only works on a 5th of your deck and does 2 damage to you and comes into play tapped.
Yep.
Like really outside my Recce deck with extra Planeswalkers, and I don't know where this is worth it.
I don't see it. I mean, I guess I could maybe make an argument for a 1v1 game in Commander.
Or maybe if you had a super aggro commander that you wanted out as fast as possible, and all you cared about
And
was,
always dies.
right, and all you cared about was playing your commander.
Yep.
Turn 1, Untadaki. Turn 2, land, and then you've got 3 mana for your commander who, Recce costs 3. I mean,
Yep.
I'm going to use it. It's in that deck now. I put it in the deck because I had a couple at home. And it should have been in the deck, like I said. But outside that, I don't know where you're going to run it.
I can't see it.
And if you're running that aggro deck, that you wanted the commander out super fast, anyway, this doesn't change that. This is only better for Planeswalkers. If you wanted your Krenko out as soon as possible, well, this doesn't change your Krenko coming out fast. That was already something you would have been running.
Yeah.
No, and then it becomes a dead card after that.
Until you recast the Krenko or recast whatever it is.
Or run into one of your random legendaries in the deck.
So I did add it to my Recce deck, but just because I misread it. Like this particular change wouldn't have made me add it if I wouldn't have been misreading it in the first place. I would have already had it in the deck. So I don't know if this changes anything really. I don't think it should. But people are clearly buying it because there's not many copies left on the internet.
No.
So is there anything else you guys can think of or you want to talk about with this legendary change rule?
I wanted to bring up Modern right now.
Okay.
I personally play Abzan in Modern, and I was debating on how many the split I should put between Liliana the Veil and Liliana the Last Hope.
Well, I think it makes Liliana the Last Hope better in Modern.
I do believe so. When you can have both of them on the field
Yeah.
at once, and then you force sack them to sacrifice one of their creatures, then you start ripping their hand apart, and you have the other Liliana who's killing anything with toughness 1 or less, and whenever it hits the field, alter, and then you get all these zombies, and it's pretty much just game over.
The biggest problem with Liliana the Last Hope was that Liliana the Veil existed.
Yes.
Yep.
Like that was the biggest downside to Last Hope, and now that isn't a downside. That just went away.
Yeah, it's something that popped in my mind. Also, with having these multiple Planeswalkers, I'm thinking that control shells could be more viable because you can pop 2 Jaces down or
Dovin
whatever
Ban.
else. Yeah.
Mm-hmm. It'll be and even like Oops All Gideons was already a deck.
Yep.
People were playing in Modern, and how much better has that gotten now?
Yes.
Tons.
So I'm interested to see if that's going to change at all. As for Standard and Legacy, I don't see anything changing, especially with rotation happening.
Rotation will hit this. If rotation wasn't going to be a factor, having both those Gideons in play right now
Both Chandras
would be a big deal. Both Chandras would be a really big deal.
Mm-hmm.
The only thing I can see for Legacy would be maybe having flipped Baby Jace and Jace the Mind Sculptor at the same time.
Yeah.
But other than that, I don't foresee anything else changing.
And this doesn't go into effect until September
29th.
29th, I believe. In maybe at your shop, no one cares. We've been intentionally like, no, we're not making changes until September. So
To go quickly back to Untadaki, I just looked. The 2 mana you get off of it, you wouldn't use all 2 on 17 Planeswalkers. Out of every Planeswalker in creation, there are 17 that have a single 0 or a single colorless mana in their casting cost.
and how many total is there?
99.
So
That's
20% almost of Planeswalkers this wouldn't work on.
or you wouldn't get the full value
The
out
full
of.
value, sure.
Right.
Yeah. I think people are going to be disappointed that jamming in their decks.
Now, if you have one already,
Cool.
try it. If you
Yeah.
don't have one, I wouldn't suggest buying it.
Like
to
I said,
try.
I should have had it in my Recce deck all along. I just didn't because I misread it. But outside that, I just don't see how it's worthwhile. The density of legends you need in your deck that can use it is just so ridiculous to hit. I just don't see many decks doing that. Maybe Sisay, because you're going to be top decking enough legends. If you're running some kind of crazy Sisay deck that's similar to my Recce deck where you've got 30 legends, 35 legends stacked in it, then I guess I could see it maybe there as well. And
Maybe get her out even faster.
yeah. So maybe you're like, I wouldn't have ran it before, but now that my 6 Planeswalkers count, it's probably worth it. Maybe.
Yeah, maybe
So,
if you're running a heavy combo deck like that or something, where you want to play as fast as possible so you don't get beaten out.
But the important thing here is to dig through your bulk bin and pull out your Untadakis and get rid of them because I don't think it's going to maintain that price for long.
Your Empress Galenas.
Yeah, because pretty much every card we've discussed has went up in value, even if it's only a
$1
or two, right? And some of them went up a lot. I think that's it. We went over literally every ridiculous thing we could go over. The one we talked about off mic was the rule where there was is an artifact from Kamigawa where the legend rule no longer applies.
Yes.
Yes.
But that doesn't do anything for Commander because you already can only have one of any copy of anything.
Yep.
There's probably something weird I didn't think of with Rite of Replication or something where you turn a Gideon into a dude and copy it with Rite of Replication. There's
Clever impersonator or something like that.
There's probably something there. But that's even more obscure. I don't know how that would ever make a big deal to a game.
We'll go over that in our After Dark episode.
Right, exactly. Exactly. So for our final sign-off question, would you like to see Planeswalkers legal as commanders? Because this came up. First of all, how did this come up? How did people get confused that they had to address it and say, this doesn't mean of course it doesn't mean they can be legal as commanders.
It doesn't say creature, so...
Right, and it doesn't... right.
I think it is because in Commander 14 we got them.
I guess.
And so they're like, oh, cool, they did it. Does this mean we can do it all the time?
But no one ever got confused. Does this mean we can use legendary artifacts as commanders too?
Our lands are...
I guess Planeswalkers are characters, but... So anyway, they noted the obvious, said no, Planeswalkers can't be your commander. Would you guys like to see that be a change?
Yes and no.
Okay.
I would like to see them print it as they did before in the commander sets. Give you cards that you have an option of playing as your commander. That is a Planeswalker.
So just more Planeswalkers like those 5 that can be a commander but don't have to.
Because they actually play for a strategy. Like Nahiri is about your equipment and Daretti is about your artifacts and stuff like that. Whereas a lot of your other Planeswalkers you have now, you can't really build a base strategy around them.
I could see that because what would how would you build around your Chandra with Noir?
Yes.
She's just basically Jai Ballard anyway. So it's just mono red Jai Ballard.
Yes.
Because I've had this conversation a few times, and I've never really looked at it. I've never sat down and been like, okay, would this Planeswalker be broken as a commander? Would any of them be broken? Maybe they would, but would they be more broken than Prash or more broken than Derevi or Zur?
I don't think so.
I mean, I don't know. I wouldn't think so. Maybe, though. I guess I haven't looked, so I'm guessing.
I think it comes back to the fact that there isn't a lot of removal for Planeswalkers.
Yeah, that's a big deal.
So that's in one aspect that, it can be broken that way. But I'm on the side of no, let's not do it.
It's a huge change.
Right.
And it's tough to walk back once you make it and everyone makes it in thousands of decks get made. And then you're like, oh, that was a bad idea.
Yeah.
I don't want to see the salt from some players when I smack them for 21 damage with Ural and they're dead. And
that's exactly why I don't want this change to happen, is because, granted, I don't run a lot of commander damage type decks, but it is plan C or D in all my decks is, okay, if I have to, I can kill you with my commander some way.
Or if you run into a deck where someone goes up to 200 life.
Right.
How are you going to kill him with the Planeswalker commander?
Sorin.
Okay, there we go on to broken Planeswalker now.
Well, so who's the strongest Planeswalker in Commander? Would it be, say Sorin Markov?
It would be Sorin Markov.
Possibly. He is 6 to cast, but so if Sorin is your commander, having that come out of the command zone and knock someone to 10.
Do you have 10 damage on board in 6 turns?
And there's still 2 other people there that are swinging at you or don't want to deal with Sorin or...
Yeah, I think Sorin would put a big target on you because they're like, okay, he's going to pop out and whoever he doesn't like or whoever's wronged him this game is going to go to 10 immediately.
And is that worse than Iona?
No.
In the command zone that comes out and shuts out color or something? So I don't know if it will be broken, but I still don't know if I want it. That's not a reason to do it, I don't think.
It takes out that aspect of being able to kill someone with your commander.
Mm-hmm.
That's what it takes away from the game. The spirit of the
sure.
format.
Yeah, we might as well play at 20 life if we're going to have commanders, be Planeswalkers then.
Right.
But that does, I do like Chris's point. I would like to see more of them printed specifically that they can test for this purpose and know wouldn't be broken and designed to be a cool Planeswalker commander.
And it's a great way to get characters we don't see anymore
absolutely
back into the story, or at least onto paper.
Right. Yeah, getting Teferi as a commander was great. Getting
Nahiri
as a commander, that was a first, right. Nahiri was a character that you just knew as a lithomancer who worked in Zendikar. Like before getting that card, he didn't even know what her name was.
Yep.
And she winds up being a huge part of the story.
Or the pre-transformed Obnix.
Yeah,
that was
that's
cool.
Great
Yes.
to see in lore. So they've done some really cool stuff with that. I would
Yeah.
like to see more. I wonder if like one year we don't get like a greatest hits commander where we have new experience commanders, and new partner commanders, and new planeswalker commanders all in one set or something.
5 decks, each one from a different
Yeah,
theory or format
Yeah.
they did. That'd be cool.
people would still complain because it's not they didn't.
They
use
aren't
a
all
new
equal.
thing, but I'd be okay with that.
I'd be fine.
All right. Well, I think that is it for this week. We went long on a topic I didn't think we'd have a lot to say, but we hit everything we could say about it. So
Oh, yeah.
That's it for this week. I am Dana.
I'm Max.
And I'm Chris.